Thomas Beer, welcome to GOATQUEST. My spidey sense has been tingling, and I wanted to jump right into some of what we see in local sports here with the divergence of the Pistons as a franchise versus the Red Wings as a franchise. Last year, this time, would you have believed that we'd be talking about these two franchises going in the totally opposite directions?
No. That's why you got to play the games. We were talking earlier about the Pistons. Pretty much the same basketball team. You did have to bring up they got a new coach.
Bickerstaff, Coach of the Year candidate.
But they're just playing ball. There's a lot of the younger guys we were talking about. A lot of the younger guys are coming through and playing and showing up and turning out to be good players that they had. And they're winning games. Yeah, I think you brought up they lost 28 games in a row last year.
This wasn't a franchise that was bad. It was a franchise that was historically the worst in ownership. Since they got to Detroit, certainly. The changeover from Monty Williams to Bickerstaff obviously makes a big difference. Everybody's a year older. You would assume that makes a difference. But you're right. They didn't make roster overhauls. Guys got a year older. They put a few more pieces in play. But let's break down a couple of things before we talk about the one that went in the wrong direction this year, the Detroit Red Wings. With the Detroit Pistons sitting in the 6th spot, 10 teams make the playoffs in each conference, East-West in the NBA. They are a winning franchise with 40 wins already at this point. Remember, they lost 28 games in a row, as you noted last year. But Cade Cunningham is having if they made a run, MVP style season. 26 points, 6 boards, 9+ assists. He's double-double night in and night out. So is Duren, who actually leads the team in double-doubles. He's got 11.5 a game, 10.5 boards, 2.5 assists. An awesome line for a center of his tenure.
Yep.
Then you go down the rest of their starting lineup, and you got some defensive specialists that play very well end-to-end. Asar Thompson, he's 9.5 points, 5 boards, again over 2 assists. Hardaway's over 10 points a game. Tobias Harris is 14 points a game. Ivy is 17.5 a game, 4 and 4 rebounds and assists. And then you got Malik Beasley coming off the bench for 16 points a game as you're one of the best sixth men in the league. Now, I would have said, that's okay, right? That's a team that's getting better. Maybe they'll win a first-round game, but they're not going to get very far in the playoffs. And then this weekend happened. So this weekend they go down to New Orleans. Cade Cunningham and Hardaway are hurt. They got to play a second-string backcourt. Marcus Sasser and the teenager, 19-year-old Ron Holland from Duncanville, Texas. They put these two guys in the game. Sasser goes for 20. Holland goes for 26 and shoots 5 of 11 from the free throw line, so he should have gone for 30. And they beat the Pelicans on the road without 2 of their best players. That tells me that this is more than just a team that can get out of the first round. These guys have a chance to make a run. And when you're that young, you don't know that you can't go the distance. I mean, they might be so young and so energetic and so fired up to have turned this thing around that they can actually make a run.
No, I just, it's great to see young players that come in and play when they have to. Most of the time, you can't depend on those for, especially in the playoffs. They've got so many young guys.
Loaded with all those picks from being bad for so long.
Yeah. And maybe it's all going to come together. It's just, it's kind of like the Lions last year, right?
Yeah.
Everybody said we're winning the Super Bowl. And the second they say that, it isn't going to happen.
Do you think that there's a bleed over in a city from the magic and the momentum that the Lions have created? Because the Pistons guys do look, when you see them, if you watch the little clips and everything of them in the locker room and the little dance stuff that they do look like they've got chemistry in a way that's getting special.
Yeah, I think it can take over a city, right? Or a small city, or, not a small city, but a version of the city, and it's infectious. Just like the Tigers last year. That was so awesome.
Yeah.
At the end, the last few games, it was, you knew they weren't going to win. They weren't going to win a
World Series.
World Series. And you knew that they were going to be lucky to make
they were
it out
doing
of that.
They were doing it with mirrors.
Yeah, they're doing it with mirrors. Yeah, I'd say it's infectious. I think the people of Detroit get behind teams and they want to be one of those teams that they're behind.
It is a ferocious sports town.
Yeah.
You just got to be a little bit good.
Look at Cleveland. I mean, you can argue which town is better, but they're all pretty similar.
Cavaliers are going to win 60 games here in a minute in the NBA. Their winning percentage is over 800.
Yeah.
I mean, Donovan Mitchell is a machine.
Yeah. And he does it every night. Like every night when they need, Cade's done that too. When you're the top player and you're looked upon to score when you need to, and you got to have it. And Cade's done that all year too.
Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive.
I'm impressed with the Pistons.
Better crack these, huh?
Yeah.
The Spreska.
You need to crack before you get into what we're dealing with the Detroit Red Wings.
Well, when you're the head guy, you're supposed to tell me when to crack.
No, I have no problem telling you what to do. It's the only time in life. As you can ask my wife. You can ask my wife. It's the only time I get to tell anybody what to do. So the Pistons are looking up at some great ball clubs. The Cavaliers and the Celtics are obviously the pride of the East right now. But I have no fear in the Knicks, Pacers, or Bucks, the other three teams that are ahead of them. I think the Pistons can contend and get to an Eastern Conference Finals if they don't have to go through the Cavaliers or the Celtics to get there.
I think so. I think anybody's beatable. I mean, they're probably going to end up playing the Knicks. Is that kind of what I read? It looks like it, but God, there's still a lot of games left. So
Knicks are Brunson. If you take Brunson out of the game, the Knicks lose.
Yeah.
If you minimize him, the Knicks lose.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of that. What I am scared of is what's happening with the Iser plan on the other nights at the LCA, since both these clubs play in the same building. It just doesn't look like the draft a bunch of Swedish defenders and put some aging scoring pieces in place to bolster your. Tarasenko did not come over and provide any additional scoring. Give me your snapshot take of what a debacle this is transforming into.
I don't know if I'd call it a debacle. But when you're pulling up 33, 34-year-old players from your minor league team to play that have been there for 8 years, that's not good. I'm just sorry. When you're in your mid-30s and you're playing in the minor league still and you're not on a team and you're getting pulled up, that means that they're lacking. They've got injuries, or the guys that are there that are young, that are supposed to be playing, aren't playing well.
I had a friend of mine, and we'll talk about him and what he does on the bracketology side since we're going to get into the NCAA tournament. But Derek Lindsey. You've met him, my buddy from Brother Rice. Went to Michigan State.
What?
He's kind of the little Derek Lindsey. Remember, there's two of them, and they're cousins?
Right, there's two of them.
And they're cousins.
Oh, God. Forgot about
Two
you.
Derek Lindseys.
Threw me off. I'm like, Derek Lindsey.
One Derek Lindsey, defensive lineman that we played with.
I do remember the other Derek Lindsey.
And the other Derek Lindsey. So the other Derek Lindsey is a bit of a sports scholar. He's a bit of a savant. And he hit me with a nugget that I think rings true. And that is sometimes a dynastic sports run like the Red Wings had, like the Patriots had, can create a complete debacle in the aftermath of that run, because you end up putting a bunch of the legends in charge of the organization, and they may or not have been the meritocracy of deserving the roles that they are consistently getting. Because when I look at what has happened in New England with the Patriots, and when I look at what is happening with the Detroit Red Wings, I see a rudderless ship of decision-making on what has transpired. And what I mean by that is Nick Lidstrom is one of the greatest players of all time. But you can't keep going to Sweden trying to find the next Nick Lidstrom with every single draft pick.
Yeah, you got to let it come to you, I think, rather than thinking that just because he was good from Sweden, somebody else is going to be good from Sweden.
And they're obviously the young defenders that are in the wing system are good players. They're talented players. The problem is you have to find pieces that fit together. Not all the same clones of guys who are weak defensively and maybe have some offensive show and go. I mean, right now, the blue line is a mess for the Red Wings. They do not defend. They're the worst penalty killing team. Possibly, now this could go down to the wire. They could end up at the end of this season being the worst penalty killing team in the history of hockey. That's how close they are.
You know, one thing I've learned too is everybody thinks that a hockey organization is run the exact same in every one. That couldn't be further from the truth. Some, the head coach makes all the decisions. Some, player personnel and people like that actually make the decisions on who they're going to draft or who they're going to trade for. So hard to pinpoint it. From the outside, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like every GM, it's their fault and, blah, blah, blah.
Every ownership group structures things differently.
Correct. They structure things differently. So sometimes certain people in an organization, no matter what their title, make the decisions.
And I'm not laying all this at the feet of Steve Yzerman.
A lot of it's got to be there, though. He's picked the last couple head coaches, right?
And I don't think Todd McClellan's the problem.
No. I heard he's a great guy.
I'm looking at his roster. And when I look at his roster, I see something that blows my mind. Now that Andrew Kopp is out for the season, they do not have a single forward on their top three lines that is plus. It's all minuses. And it's, in some cases, significant minuses. This is a team that somehow has won 33 games. They're 2 games over 500. And doesn't have a single guy on their top three lines that's a plus. They're all significant minuses.
For the year?
For the year. They're all minuses. Wow. You got to go down.
I was going to say, would you pick out a 2-week bad run? It's for the year?
You got to go down to their 16th ranked scoring player, Soderblom, who is played in 20-something games. He's a fourth liner, so he doesn't play on the penalty kill or any of the situations where you could get minuses, right? You got to go all the way down to a 23-game guy at the 16th rank, and he's +2.
Yeah, that plus minus is tough, too. I mean, it does matter.
But when it nets out that significantly?
You just got a bad team.
Exactly.
You just got a bad team.
Yeah, so I look at people and they say, oh, well, the Wings still have a shot here. They're 2 games over 500. They need to do this. No, stop it.
They got a 9% shot.
Stop it.
Yeah.
They have a 0% shot. I'll tell you why they have a 0% shot. This is a bad team. Yeah. I mean, bad teams don't make the playoffs. You know what's going to happen. When these other teams that are ahead of them, which is the Senators, the Canadiens, the Islanders, the Rangers, and those are ones that are not in yet. Okay. The one that's in is the Devils, right? That's the one they got to catch, right? Yeah. So when you look at these teams versus
there's no shot.
They have no chance because of who they're looking up at, not because of just themselves. Yeah. But they're a bad hockey team right now. Unequivocally, being over 500, you can say, okay, they are a winning team.
They had a couple runs where they looked like they were pulling it together. It just didn't happen.
Even Lucas Raymond, who's having the 70-point season, I mean, he's going to have his best year. He's -10. I don't care. I know that it's an overrated stat, or you could say it's a gamed stat. When he's on the ice, the other team has 10 more goals. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Look at great teams and great players that are top line.
And that doesn't
They don't have that.
No.
So the Pistons are trending in what we think is the most optimistic direction after a season that was epically horrific last year. And the Wings, who everybody thought was trending in the right direction coming into this year, are once again going to miss the playoffs. That, at the same time, if you remember when we started this podcast, it was when the Detroit Tigers were in the middle of one of the great runs in the history of baseball to go from completely out of it to making the playoffs and actually being a significant factor in people's calculus around the World Series. Yeah. Opening day is right around the corner.
Yeah.
Are you going to be there?
I've gone to the last couple. I don't know if I'm going to be there. Maybe. We always go down, go to the DAC. Yeah, shake and bake a little bit.
Well, this is interesting because the only part of sports when football season is not going on that I actually get fired up for is this moment that we're about to pass into, which is the launch of the Major League Baseball season, the playoffs of hockey and the NBA, and the March Madness tournament, which is now down to the Sweet 16. So we teed up the tournament. We made our picks. We talked about who we thought the dark horses were and who were going to be the number one seeds. So let's get into it. Sweet 16, what was your biggest shocker from the first big weekend, the round of 64 and the round of 32? And what did you feel? Who looked the most dominant? Shocker and most dominant.
Shocker, I think, for me is Michigan. Came back, came out. The guards are playing good. They got 2 7-footers. The 1 7-footer is, I think he's going to be a great NBA player.
Wolf.
Well, yeah.
I hear people saying this kid's got Larry Bird qualities at 7 foot.
Dude, he brings the ball up the court at 7 foot. And the guards have been playing good. They've been hitting clutch threes, which they weren't doing when they were losing. They're the biggest surprise to me. What was the second part of it? The surprise?
Well, let's hang there for a second because you opened up a window.
Okay.
Donaldson, the guard in particular, who you're saying has been hitting the big shots and wasn't hitting the big shots before this most recent run. He played at Auburn last year. I
didn't know that.
He's like Charles Barkley's favorite player. Obviously Barkley talks up Auburn quite a bit. Bruce Pearl's Auburn team finally gets out of the first weekend after some struggles. He looks like he's got it going with a full roster of horses. But now Donaldson gets a chance to beat his old team from last year. It's always shocking to me. We saw Calipari versus Patino. The NCAA tournament bracket people put together these little dramas on the side, and they end up playing out mysteriously. And now a former Auburn Tiger will be leading the Michigan Wolverines against the number 1 seeded Auburn Tigers.
Well, this is in the past, though, you always used to have to sit out, right? Or sit out a year or two. Now, these guys can go wherever they want for whatever amount of money at any time they want. I mean, I saw one coach on there said, yeah, half my team. It was a guy from UConn.
Danny Hurley.
He's like, yeah, half my team's already gone. I already know where they're going next year.
Yeah. In the tournament.
Yeah.
Today. It was yesterday. The portal opened yesterday in the middle of the tournament.
What a shit show. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Wait till after the tournament.
Yeah. Calipari said the same thing in his post-game press conference. Hey, guys, I got to get out of here because tomorrow.
I got to get some ballers on my team.
Tomorrow I got to figure out what I'm doing in the portal in the middle of the NCAA tournament. While we're trying to prepare for our Sweet 16 game, we got to be juggling who's coming and who's going.
Okay. They have unlimited money. Every team.
Yeah, right now.
Pretty much.
Right now, it's based on the market value of name, image, and likeness. It's capitalist society.
If they wanted to pay somebody $50 million right now, they could do it. And it's totally legal.
If they could find it. If Larry Ellison's wife decides that they can find that money.
There's a lot more people than Larry Ellison's wife that have
got to go
$50
get that money.
But seriously, if you want to win, God, yeah, so how do you even balance that?
St. John's got their billionaire, and they couldn't get out of the first weekend.
Yeah.
He came in, they got a Big East title out of it, and I want to open that up for a second since we're there.
Yeah, look at Arkansas, too.
Did you watch the St. John's Arkansas game?
Yes.
Okay. Had you watched St. John's during the year?
Yes.
Okay, me too. R.J. Lewis was one of the best players. Lottery pick. Outstanding, do it all. I love the way that guy can create shots. The kid who played against Arkansas, the kid who was wearing R.J. Lewis's uniform for St. John's, playing in that game against Arkansas, was not the same player.
Yeah.
Now, I'm hearing all kinds of rumors. You get out there on the web. The only thing that makes sense to me is that he had an undisclosed illness. And we're not hearing about the fact that he has mono or he has the flu or he has some virus. If that's not the case, I'm going to be the first one to put it out there into the sphere. Somebody got to him and he threw that basketball game. That's a different player. He was unengaged.
Yeah.
He didn't go and demand the basketball. He didn't want the basketball. When he got the basketball on offensive rebounds, he missed 6 or 7 layups. He went 3 of 17 from the field. After watching that kid play all year long, could you have imagined a scenario where that basketball player went 3 of 17 from the field.
In your whole life, have you ever seen money thrown at something and it doesn't get fucked up? Anything. Anything in your life. Look back in 2008, right? It gave everybody a mortgage. We let one person buy 15 houses if you had over a 700 credit score.
One stripper, you mean?
Yeah, one stripper.
Got to buy how many houses?
But there's 5,000 strippers that each had 15 houses. In Florida. Yeah, I mean, anytime you throw money at stuff, and that's what scares me, even we're not even getting into our economy, but just how the money has grown and how much credit card debt we have. My point is, this isn't going to turn out great with the NIL.
It's a valid
point. They got to
point.
put a cap on it.
Sports does have signaling towards greater economic dynamics.
I mean, do you even think that you would get in trouble for giving somebody a bag full of $200,000 in $100 bills now? Who would even police it?
Well, what would they even claim is the regulatory environment?
There isn't one. There isn't one. I can give them whatever I want. I want to give them a bag with $500,000 in $100 bills. I can do it.
What laws am I violating?
You're not.
They're trying to put rules around this. I think they're going to say that there's going to be a judgment equation for market value now.
For instance, Larry Ellison's. I mean, that's not a write-off for Larry Ellison.
No, it will be in the future because now they're saying that they can put all this right through the university.
Oh my God!
But he missed that window. He doesn't even need it,
dude. They're actually going to make that a window.
Yeah,
that they're just going to pay it right to
give it right to the university, which means it's a write-off.
And the university cannot decide what to do with the money. They have to spend it on that player.
Well,
so what do they give him, a paycheck?
No, the university can make decisions, but remember, the university will never get another donation if they don't do with the money what they said they were going to do with it, right? I mean, every billionaire who was out there will know, oh, I gave you the money for this and you used it for that. Well,
it's almost like
word gets around fast.
It's going to change everything. It's going to change everything. Money does. Money changes everything in every aspect, and it is what it is. I'm not saying it's bad.
So in this case, do you think somebody got to this kid with a giant check
it looked like he went out partying, or somebody gave him a giant check and said, "You're going to throw this game"?
It was a different player.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the triples. It was layups. I mean, these were high percentage shots that he was missing. And what kind of put the final nail in the coffin for me is when Patino benched him twice.
Yeah.
He got benched twice. The best player got benched twice. You see when
they asked Patino?
What did he say?
No, they asked at the end of the game, the guy asked him I can't remember the exact question, but Patino's like, you know the answer to your question, why I benched him. He goes,
I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah. Patino said, you know the answer. I'm not answering that. But you guys watched the game. You know why I benched him.
Yeah.
So even Patino must have been like, I got to bench him. And the guy can't make a layup.
And when he's
not hustling.
And I completely agreed with his decision. I told my wife, I picked this team to win, and their best player is a liability when he's on the floor right now.
Yeah.
They were much better when they took their best player off the floor.
Yeah.
That tells me something's wrong.
That's what Patino says. So he knew something too. Whatever that something is, who knows what people do.
Well, John Calipari was the other coach in that game, which played out this whole drama that's gone on between Calipari and Patino over the years, Kentucky, Louisville.
But most of it's good. Most of it's friendly anyway.
Between the two of them, of course, individually in their lives, Patino has been shit show of massive. I mean, it's a mess, right?
Yeah.
The Patino world is a mess. But, somehow this guy keeps landing on his feet because he can win basketball games.
Yeah.
And he's a hell of a coach. There's no doubt about that.
And he can recruit and all that stuff, yeah.
Calipari gets a $150,000 bump to a salary that's going to be $7 million next year in that Sweet 16 run. The biggest one that's in the publicly disclosed documents is Rick Barnes for Tennessee. He got an extra $200,000. Calvin Sampson's Houston run earned him $100,000. Izzo gets $75,000. He's back in the Sweet 16. Obviously, I did my mea culpa for the Spartans. This team looks like they can keep moving on. And then there's a whole bunch of other guys who are kind of in the same ballpark as Izzo. Tommy Lloyd for Arizona gets $50,000. Mark Pope for Kentucky gets $50,000. Bruce Pearl gets $50,000.
Do the players get a bump yet? That's coming.
Well,
if the coaches are getting a bump for getting to the Sweet 16, it's coming for the players.
That's what they're trying to outlaw. They're trying to build in structure.
So you don't want to get paid for performance?
They don't want kids being penalized for having a bad game. They are still trying to keep some structure in this that feels like a contract. I know some people are crying, hey, just put them on contracts. Why are we playing this fake-o game of name, image, and likeness and market value for what that name, image, and likeness is?
You're getting paid to play, period.
So why not just put them on contracts?
Yeah.
Right? And then you can stop them from leaving.
Yeah.
Right?
They've got to put in something that you can't just jump every year to a new team and get a bump,
Multiple players, if you were listening to the broadcast, were on their fourth team in 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
Fourth team in 4 years since this debacle started.
Yeah. I know. It's money.
So bracketology. We're all in these pools.
Yep.
It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, not just the gaming side of it, just the bracketology side of it. We all do these office pools. Warren Buffett is going to finally give away $1 million because there were very few upsets this time, if you read that. Mm-hmm. There was one person who had a one loss, which is where he gives out the $1 million. We've never had somebody do a perfect bracket. I know there's all these rumors that it happened such and such a place.
Sure.
It's never
There's
been
proof.
No proof that it was ever done for money, where somebody put it in, risked money, and won money for a perfect bracket throughout. But this bracketology thing, are you in a pool?
No.
You didn't do a pool this year?
No, I look at them, but, I don't know. There was a couple pools I could have got into, but.
I'm in a couple. I took it on the chin when Iowa State went out because I had Iowa State making a deep run. So I think I have no chance at all, but maybe one of them where I have Houston and Florida in the final, and both of those two are still alive.
Okay.
But Iowa State was certainly my dark horse. They're out. This now gets back to that original question that I asked you. Who do you think looks the most dominant?
For me, it's Auburn. They've got the big men. They've got the guards. They're the number one team in the nation. They should be. I think you got to get a little lucky, too. In the last couple games they've been close games. But I like Auburn.
So you got the most shocking team, Michigan, and the most dominant team, Auburn. So you think that game is going to be Clash of the Titans?
I think so. I mean, I'm still kind of surprised that Michigan made it. They were losing to bad teams and not playing that good against some of the better teams. I just
Dusty
didn't like
May
them.
Comes in his first year at Michigan. He's got him in the Sweet 16. I'm sure there's some bump to his salary that we're going to find out about.
Well, they got matchup problems, too. You got 2 7-footers, and they're both playing well.
Point guard can take anybody to the rack.
Anybody, and the shooting guard's good, and then they've had some role players come in and making huge threes. So
you like the Wolverines getting 8.5?
No,
you think Auburn is so good.
I think Auburn will win by 15.
15?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take that bet.
Okay.
Our usual, $2?
$2.
$2. I want my $2. You've got the Michigan-Auburn game being and that's a Friday night game. Friday night, 9:39. I think that the game of the tournament from a dramatic standpoint in this next round is going to be Maryland-Florida. One thing that Danny Hurley and UConn did is they showed that this Florida team may not be as dominant on a night when not everybody is shooting the ball from three as well as they hope. And I do think that Maryland can defend. The question is going to be, can Maryland's, really, they're a 5-man team.
Yeah.
Right? They keep guys out there for 30-plus minutes all over the board. So can Maryland's starting 5 slow Florida down enough to not get run off the floor in the fourth quarter?
I don't think so. Sounds like all I want to do is take favorites. There's a reason they're favorites, right?
6.5.
Yeah.
Florida giving Maryland 6.5.
I do not like, I know a lot of the Big Ten has made the Sweet 16, 4 teams? When I watch a basketball game, I look at the bigs inside, right? And that's why I should like Michigan, but I don't, because I think their other bigs are going to be better.
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it, right? I mean, the bigs can stabilize a game.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter, right? I mean, the shooting percentage is going to be much higher if you can get the ball inside to the bigs and if they can hit the glass and clean up some easy points. The flip side to that argument is the traditional model for success in the NCAA tournament is experienced guard play, right? So usually those senior guards or those junior guards who are savvy, have been in the big moments, don't turn the ball over as much and hit the big shot at the big moment, come out on top.
And that's why I really should like Alabama. I think they've got the best guards in the NCAA. I don't have them on my list, but that guard trio that they've got are so tough.
They opened at 4.5, and also the money went in that direction and pushed it up to 5.5.
And I like BYU too.
BYU can shoot the basketball, and I've never seen a team of shooters where all the shooters are like 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". Yeah. None of these guys are getting their shot blocked from out there.
Yeah.
Right? These are big, tall guys who can shoot the rock.
Yeah.
Which means that if they get hot, they can win the basketball game.
Yeah. Yeah. That's anybody can get hot.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Here's where I'll tell you why I say I don't know. I watched Ole Miss. And I've seen Ole Miss a couple times throughout the year. Padula kid's a great player, great guard. They can't beat Michigan State, in my opinion.
No, I don't think so either.
And the reason why I say that is because Michigan State's defense forces a lower percentage. You're just not going to shoot the basketball the same. And when Ole Miss doesn't shoot the ball well, when they have to go to their second, third, even fourth option on an offensive rotation, it doesn't work out.
I think their luck has run out. I would think. It's not luck, but their way of playing, they've got to make every shot.
Yeah, and when you look at why UConn was successful in winning back-to-back national championships these last 2 years, if they had to go their third or fourth option, their third or fourth option scored.
Yeah.
Right? You got to have guys who don't necessarily have to be premier scorers, but when they are open, they hit a high percentage. In their spot, when they are open, they do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's what scares me about Michigan. Those two bigs are great players at certain moments, but they miss a lot of layups.
They do.
When they're in the right spot at the right time and you think that they should be in a high percentage situation, it's the same percentage it always is.
Yeah. It's just such a hard thing to calculate, and I know that's why we're on this podcast, because that's what we got to talk about. But how a 6'8" forward matches up against a 7-foot center, right?
And two 7-foot
centers
that are center forward, right? Rotating power forward.
Yeah. So how does that work out? And most of the time, it seems it goes with the bigger guy, but.
Well, and you're going to have good coaching across the board here. I don't think any of these teams are going to get out-coached at this point.
No.
I do think that from a coaching standpoint, the most interesting matchup for me is the last game on Friday night with Purdue and Houston. Purdue is that team that came flying out of the blocks and then kind of middled their way through the end of the season. Now, Braden Smith seems to be shooting the ball, running the offense very well.
Yeah.
The thing I'm focused on there is Painter and Calvin Sampson. Calvin Sampson has had this philosophy, much like Michigan State and Tom Izzo, where he is going to run and push and run and push, and he doesn't care. He's not trying to play to your strengths or weaknesses. He's dictating the pace of the game and making you try to challenge what they do. This is a clash of styles because Purdue wants to do exactly the opposite.
Exactly. Yeah.
Who is going to win out in that battle? Who can control the pace of that game? Do you think that that's as much a deciding factor, or is it once again going to come down to who can make the big shots?
I think it comes down to who's going to make the big shots. There's no way. Depending on the line, I don't think there's any way you can pick Purdue over Houston.
They're getting 7.5, and it hasn't moved.
That probably isn't enough, in my opinion.
I think it's spot on.
Do you?
I think that.
You think that's perfect?
I think Houston wins by 8.
Really?
Yeah, and you're tap dancing the whole way because it's free throws.
Oh, all these games are tap dancing the whole way.
It's free throws at the end. It's a 3 or 4 point game.
It is uncanny how these bookmakers can pick these lines.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
So in a 3 or 4 point game, You have to hope that in that last minute and a half, Purdue decides to start fouling
Yeah.
and not trapping.
Well, that's what they're supposed to do, but
Right.
sometimes they don't do what they're supposed to do.
And that Lawyer and Smith don't start hitting the threes at the end
Yeah.
to tighten it up even more.
Yeah.
Did you see Liam McNeely hit the three for UConn against Florida to
yeah.
make it a 2-point game?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like 3 of those games. There was another game that I had, just had a little bit of money on it. A meaningless 3-pointer. They're up by like, I can't
A bomb from half court.
I can't even think of the game now. But the guy hit like a 40-footer that meant nothing. They were down by 25 to cover.
Yeah,
I'm
just to cover. Just to put the dagger in the gambler's heart. Well, let's give the gamblers their final run. All right. So we talked about the first game of this weekend is the Thursday night, 7 p.m. That's the BYU Cougars against Alabama. It's a 4.5-point spread with Alabama giving that 4 to the Cougars.
I'm going to go. I've got to go with the best guards in NCAA basketball.
And you know Oates, the coach for Alabama.
Yeah.
Coach for Romulus right here in Detroit, Michigan. He's Romulus high school coach.
You're the only one that knows that.
Well, I think a lot of people have figured this out over the years, especially local people.
Oh, okay.
Especially local coaches, because that's the dream scenario.
They would know, sure.
Right? I could be him someday. 7:39 is that game I spoke about where the 5-man team of the Maryland Terrapins with Derek Queen, who can take 3 steps, I guess, before he shoots the final shot at the buzzer to win a game that killed me in my other pool, by the way.
It's a little bit. They're bringing in the
I had Colorado State.
They're bringing in the NBA a little bit. They're letting you get away with that stuff.
That was 3 full steps and a shot off the glass.
They take 4 in the NBA and they don't call them.
I know. He got the traveler. So Maryland, Florida. Florida's -5.5. Obviously, there are certain people who, now -6.5. There are certain people who have them picked to win it all, and they are the highest percentage right now.
Yeah, I mean,
of picks.
I hate to pick all favorites. I don't know how you can pick Maryland to beat Florida in any game.
The biggest favorite is the next game, which is the Duke Blue Devils, who are an 8.5-point going to 9. And the Duke Blue Devils at 33-3 play against the Arizona Wildcats. The Arizona Wildcats, to me, have no identity. I don't know how they got here. I know they're a good basketball team, but when I watch them play, it always seems to be a different guy. It always seems to have a different the game. There's no signature to this team.
Because of that?
So they'll probably beat Duke.
Because of that?
Yeah.
We take Arizona.
Yeah. Tommy Lloyd will probably...
The less we know, the more dangerous we are.
They've lost 12 games, and I don't know who they are on any given day, so Duke probably doesn't know who they are either, and they'll beat them.
They confuse everybody.
Yeah. 10 o'clock game is Arkansas and Texas Tech. We haven't talked about this one other than talking about Calipari. Texas Tech opened at 6.5 as the favorite. Now they're down to 5.5. So the money is coming to Calipari. And I thought Arkansas played the best game they played all season. So they're getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, I think in physically they can match up with a lot of teams. It's amazing with this NIL. You can make your own team in a year.
But to counterpoint you, one of the programs that took the most advantage of NIL was Texas Tech and Toppin. Yeah. I mean, he's got 3 studs that he brought in that program. So we'll see what Texas Tech looks like against the Arkansas Razorbacks.
I like Arkansas. Oh, well, hold on. Texas Tech is the favorite, correct?
Texas Tech is the favorite.
Yeah, I like Arkansas.
You like Arkansas.
Yeah.
So then we flip the script to Friday. We've talked about Ole Miss and Sparty. Sparty has only given Ole Miss 3.5. To me, that's the bet.
I think so, but God, they've been playing great.
Ole Miss has played very well.
They beat Iowa State handily.
They've got the experienced guard play. I don't think that they have the depth.
I didn't think that.
I don't think they have the 3rd and 4th option when Michigan State shuts down options 1 and 2.
Michigan State's defense is phenomenal, but they beat North Carolina, and North Carolina was tough.
Michigan State.
Iowa State. I just think that they, like you said, getting hot at the right time.
Michigan State can run 5 fouls at you from 3 different guys.
Yeah.
They can hammer you. They can crowd you. They can annoy you. They're difficult to play against. We talk about that with hockey players, right?
Yeah.
That are always in your shit and very difficult to play against. That's what the guards for Michigan State do. They're difficult to play against. And that front line with Kohler and Cooper and Zapala, they're nasty.
Yeah.
Those guys are nasty. They don't play the same way that Michigan State teams have played in the past. These guys are thuggy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's another equalizer is defense, right? Big men in defense for me, and the numbers don't lie. You know, the numbers don't lie. They shut teams down, and whatever their percentages are, they're 10% lower against Michigan State.
I like Michigan State against any of these SEC teams because it will not be an SEC style game. They will change the style of the game with their defense, and then they push you offensively worse than the teams that you play against do in the SEC. So they stop you from breaking out and doing the things you want to do on the break, but you can't stop them from changing the pace of the game. That's where I think Izzo's got something special.
Okay.
We talked about Michigan and Auburn. Kentucky Wildcats, a team that's kind of flown under the radar with Mark Pope as the new first-year coach, against the Tennessee Volunteers. Rick Barnes, we talked about his $200,000 bonus for getting to the Sweet 16. His gift, now that he's made it, is that he's got to face a rival from the SEC and the Kentucky Wildcats, and he's given 4.5 points.
Yeah. Kentucky's tough. They got 4 guys that are going to be lottery picks, too. They're tough.
It's easy to recruit to Kentucky. I mean,
yeah, we just give a
it's history.
bag full of hundos, right?
The Volunteers are the more experienced team.
You don't think that the Volunteers?
They're giving away some cash dollars.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question. I mean, think about it.
It's hype in Knoxville.
Yeah. The 3 that I like, I should have picked 4 because there's 4 different brackets, is Auburn. And I actually have BYU on here. Auburn, BYU, and Houston.
Auburn, BYU, and Houston.
If I had to pick a 4th, probably Kentucky.
Kentucky's not making it. Okay. Kentucky's going out against Tennessee.
You think so?
Yep. Another. We want to make
There's
the
another. What was our first? Oh, you have Michigan.
Oh, you got Auburn. That's right. I do have Michigan.
Yeah.
I have
Auburn.
Michigan.
And I gave you 15.
No, I just want the 8.5.
Oh, that's it.
I just want the 8.5.
Really?
Just give me the 8.5.
For 200.
I don't want you running around saying I gave him 15.
For $200.
Just take the normal spread, and then I'll take.
Yeah, you got to pick one because whoever picks loses.
I'll take Tennessee minus 4.5. You have Kentucky.
Yeah. So.
All right. As we break down bracketology, that's for the gamblers. I'm in 2 separate pools. I'm in a fantasy pool where we go by points scored. This league has been going on since I was in college.
Okay.
We did the first
Points
draft.
scored by a player?
Points scored by the players.
Okay.
You pick a team, and all that matters is the points that they score, right? So it's the points they score for the whole tournament. So if you got a guy who goes out in round 1, right, and he scores 40.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you got a guy who goes 6 rounds and he scores 6 per game, right? The guy who scored 40 in 1 round still outscored him, right? So it's simple math. We don't make it complicated. It's been going on since college. I mean, this is a long-ass league that's been in motion. And Derek Lindsay
35 years
started
ago.
in a Michigan State apartment many, many moons ago, and it's still going on. And I'm alive and well in that. I've got about half my team left. I need some things to happen. Iowa State hurt me badly by going out.
Did you have a couple players?
I had 2 players from Iowa State. But I also have 2 from Houston.
Okay.
So if Houston goes out, I'm absolutely doomed and done. No money there. I'm already probably out of the top spot. Probably can't get the top spot, but I could still get in the money.
How many guys are in it?
This time this year, I think we had 12 entries.
Okay.
12 teams. 12 to 14 teams is usually where we end up. Brackets, I'm out of all of them except one. The one I told you where I got Florida and Houston. There's no way I have a chance to win any other ones. But this year I entered a new thing. A survivor pool. You ever done a survivor pool?
Yeah, I have.
You pick 3 teams that have to get out of the first round. You pick 2 teams that have to get out of the second round. Then you got to pick one team to the championship.
Okay.
And you got to survive the whole way. And then if you and multiple other people make it all the way to the winner of the final game and you all have the same winner of the final game, then it comes to the cumulative seeds that you picked. So the guys who picked upsets,
Oh, wow.
right, the seed number being higher
Wow.
means that that's the tiebreaker to win out if
a
everybody
lot of
gets
thinking.
the final. In that one, it's down to 39, and it's big dollars for this one. A lot of people, a lot of money.
Okay.
So this one, there's 39 left. If Derek Queen gets called for traveling on that Maryland win, there'd have been 18 teams left.
What?
More than half the field had Maryland
Oh, my
in that
God.
game and advanced because he didn't get called for traveling. Wow. This is what makes gambling so entangled with sports.
Yeah.
That was dramatic enough unto its own that he hits a last-second shot for your Maryland Terrapin fans. But for the gamblers out there that are in stuff like this, you go from basically being in the money with one more win, and I'm talking big money. All right,
you know what's
you can
scary?
win 5 digits in this pool.
You know what's scary about gambling? It's kind of really just started. I know we always had bookies, and we had ways to make bets.
You mean TC?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, you never heard of him.
No, I never heard of him.
You never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
Never took place.
No, but it's just starting. Wait till when you're 10 years old and your dad's gambling and he's got his phone, and that's just started. That's going to get indoctrinated into all of our kids. I try to tell my son all the time, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't touch it. Don't gamble $10 because 10 turns into 20, turns into 200, turns into thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the little parlays.
Yeah.
I do like the little odds plays because you can put very small money down and still win something relatively significant. That's pretty much the only part of it that I still get into at a high level. But it does accentuate the moments.
Oh, gosh.
And there have been some amazing moments around the college tournament.
But it also, almost makes it like if you don't have money on it, it's hard to watch. That's true. That is true for a lot of people.
For a lot of people who got probably too deep into it and have
Sure.
addictive personalities.
Sure.
And maybe never just had a general appreciation for the game. If you have a general appreciation for the game, this Sweet 16 is going to be great.
Yeah.
And it's going to be dramatic.
Yeah.
And it's going to have moments that blow people away. So
Yep.
that's our GOAT list.
Yep.
The moments, the biggest moments that you remember from an NCAA tournament standpoint. What is your Mount Rushmore of tournament? Just teams that won it all, right? That were the most significant victories, or actual moments from the tournament that gave you the most juice.
I think the moments are high seeds making it, like 2008 with Davison and Seth Curry. Those stick in my mind more than somebody winning.
Yeah.
Right? Like just that feeling of being a Davison student athlete and watching your team beat UConn, or
Bill Frieder leaving Michigan, and then Michigan and Ramil Robinson making the free throws to win the tournament. Dramatic things that should not happen. Princeton,
Yeah.
what was it, 83? Princeton beats Georgetown?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Remember when that first
and Georgetown had like all 5 guys that went on to the NBA.
studs,
Right?
Just studs,
Yeah.
loaded. John Thompson loaded against that little Pete, white-haired coach for Princeton running
Yeah.
around, winning in 83.
VCU, but before VCU was even out there, it was whatever year that was. It's probably 2010.
Shaka Smart's
Yeah,
team.
Shaka Smart's team, and they had a couple guys that went into the NBA.
The
but-
George Mason team.
Yeah, remember
that
the
made
George
the
Mason
Final Four
team?
run.
How do you ever predict that? I mean, you don't. I mean, that's why we remember it, I guess.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. I mean,
Florida Gulf Coast in 2013, that run that they had.
absolutely. I think all the way back. So when I started watching basketball at a high level, when the NCAA tournament became a thing for me, it was coming out of UCLA being the dominant powerhouse. People were still talking about the legend of John Wooden and the 12 Final Fours. But when I started watching basketball at a high level, Duke was not great. I know Duke historically has been great for a very long time, but if you remember like 81, 82, 83, early days of us watching the NCAA, Krzyzewski didn't even make the tournament in his first few years.
Yeah.
It wasn't until that like 84, 85 team where they got back in it. And around that late 80s era, it was actually a shocker to see Duke making the deep run. Duke beating UNLV. Duke was the underdog.
Yeah.
Right? Remember with Jerry Tarkanian and that?
What switched? They got good players, Joe.
Got a great coach. He went to 13 Final Fours, the most of all time.
I would call him a great recruiter.
Oh, come on. Krzyzewski's a great
He's a
coach.
great coach. But
He
the
had,
reason he's a
early in
great
his career,
coach,
he had all the big upsets.
the reason
he
he's
didn't win as a favorite his whole career.
The reason he's a great, Belichick used to be in Cleveland for years and he sucked. And then he gets to, he gets to New England and he gets Tom Brady. If he didn't get Tom Brady, he wouldn't have won what he would have won.
I think it was all the line of demarcation.
Then don't you remember Tom Brady leaving, going to Tampa, and everybody said, hey, he's done. I said, no, he's not done. He's not done. He won a Super Bowl in fucking Tampa. It's not the coaching. I
think the line of demarcation for Duke's basketball program, when they became the villain, is Christian Laettner era.
Yeah.
Christian Laettner put on the villain vest. He hit the 92 big shot against Kentucky that will get played forever and ever and ever. It's one of the greatest moments in sports history.
And he was a great player.
Fantastic basketball player, but he played the villain very well, and from that point forward, Duke was always the favorite.
Yeah.
That the multiple championship run, people very quickly forgot that they were an underdog against UNLV.
Look at UNLV. They had their top 5 guys all in the good players in the NBA. Not just players, good players.
The whole, Augman, Larry Johnson.
Yeah. Both guards.
Greg Anthony.
The other guard, too.
Anderson Hunt.
You
just go on and on and on with that.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was probably some NBA players on their bench.
I'm positive that there were. So, biggest moments in NCAA history for me, obviously the Laettner one. Michael Jordan's coming out party in 1982 when he hits the jumper in the corner against Georgetown. That sets him on the road to becoming arguably the greatest athlete of all, the most iconic athlete of all time, certainly. The one that's probably the most back and forth, the one that kind of radically shifted 2 whole universes, is when a 16 team finally beat a number 1 team, the University of Maryland, Baltimore, beating Virginia, the number 1 seed from the ACC. You would have thought it was a career-ending moment for Tony Bennett and the Virginia Cavaliers to be number 1, to win the ACC, and then to lose to a 16 seed. But what does Tony Bennett do? He goes back to work, comes in to the ACC the next year, and wins the national championship. After losing as a number 1 seed to a 16, he wins the national championship the next year. We'll probably never see that again in the history of sports.
I think we'll see more and more 16s beating 1s and 2s beating 15s just because of the NIL. I just think that...
You think somebody's just going to have the cash? They're going to be on their deathbed.
Yeah.
They're going to leave it all to Bryant University.
Whoever, exactly.
In Smithfield, Rhode Island.
Quinnipiac or wherever,
And they're going to go out and buy the next LeBron James.
Absolutely. Why can't you?
The next Cooper Flag.
Why can't you? If you were that player, would you go play at Delaware? Sure. You're going to give me $8 million? I'll go to Delaware. Sure.
So
no, hold on. You got to get these other 3 guys too. So that's what players are going to start doing.
Oh yeah, bringing their buddies.
They're going to bring all their buddies.
The guys on the AAU team.
Hell yeah, the AAU team. I want that whole team. That's who I want to play with.
IMG Academy the whole team is going to get bought to come.
Yeah. And I want $8 million.
So what you're saying is there's a chance. And there's going to be more big moments in the future that we haven't even pondered yet.
I think so. I don't think it's...
Because the dollars can come in.
The dollars can come in and they can change everything. They can change everything.
That's an interesting take. That somebody could buy their way to Mount St. Mary's having a national championship team.
If you can buy golfers and you can buy a whole PGA league over and over, you can do whatever you want with
Saudi Aramco.
There's no rules.
All right, best moment ever. Our last and final. Your NCAA tournament best moment ever, number 1.
I've got on my list Loyola Chicago
I didn't ask you about your goddamn list. I
Yeah.
asked you who's number one.
I'd say that.
We got to sum this thing up.
I'd say Loyola game. I mean, just watching them play in 2018, at least it's something I remember. I don't remember.
With the nun in the wheelchair.
Correct.
Rooting on Loyola.
Correct. Just it was about something different than it is now. I mean, you had guys you
That
played
was
with.
your last moment of purity before NIL tarnished the whole thing.
Kind of, right? You know, before NIL got involved, guys staying in college for 4 years. And I mean, can you imagine, Joe? We play together 1 year, and you decide you're going to Grand Valley. You're gone. Bye. Bing.
Money, money,
Yeah,
money.
I know.
Can't
but
you see?
I guess it really doesn't matter. Your buddies are your buddies, but it just wasn't an option for us.
And I wouldn't have wanted it to be an option.
You imagine?
Unless it was life-changing cash, right? I wouldn't have wanted, let's put it this way. Going back in time, now, I'm very privileged to not have to worry very much about,
Joe, remember how broke we were.
That's where I'm going with this. Looking back on it, hindsight is 2020. I wouldn't have wanted to give up the camaraderie for 25 or 50 grand when I look back on it now. At the time, 25 or 50 grand would have been a lot of money. But looking back on it,
there's nothing we wouldn't have done for $25,000. Nothing.
We were not well off.
No.
I get that. My biggest moment.
Not many people were.
My biggest moment in NCAA history, I'm going back to that 1983 tournament. And maybe it's partially because he has become such a legendary figure.
Michael Jordan?
No, in his passing. Jim Valvano.
Oh.
So
running out onto the floor.
The Lorenzo Charles.
Yeah.
The air ball shot that he grabs and puts in at the final seconds, just the wherewithal to go up. And, most of the time you're blocking out for a rebound.
Yeah.
You don't get a great look at the shot, right? Because
you're not jumping up on a shot of your own team.
The awareness by Lorenzo Charles to jump up, see that it was going to be short, right? I think was it Derek Whittingham who took the shot?
God, I don't remember.
Goes up, grabs the ball, puts it in, and then the berserker celebration with Valvano running around, and then, of course, now the Jimmy V Foundation, the heartfelt sorrow behind his early passing. And he was such a charismatic character and meant so much to so many people. Maybe that's why it's lived on in my memory so much. But Wolfpack 83, NC State beating a heavily favored Houston. If you remember that was as bad as Duke beating UNLV.
Yeah.
The Phi Slamma Jamma Houston team going down to NC State.
Drexler and yeah.
That's my number one.
Okay.
And Jeff Mulholland.
That's my number one.
Jeff Mulholland and the Butcher's Cut, Detroit City Distillery, is also our number one for potentially sponsoring our podcast. We're coming down to the final episodes of this season, right? We wrap this thing from the beginning of the football season, end of the baseball season.
When do we start? In September?
Yeah, September-ish.
September-ish.
End of baseball, into football. We roll football into the NCAA tournament, and then we got to take a break. So we're coming down to the last episodes. We want you to contact us and tell us what GOAT list you want for the finale. You, the audience members, the tried and true, who have been following the GOAT list online, make sure that GOATQuest gets your answer as to what you were down to our last couple episodes. What list have we forgotten that you want us to give you? And then Eric Burton is going to supposedly help kick us off for the new season at MIS, Michigan International Speedway, with the number one driver on NASCAR, Chris Bell. His brother-in-law. We'll see if Bertone the Magnificent can come through. Are you ready for taking this show on the road?
I am.
What if we take it to Detroit for Detroit City Distillery's pregame parties for the
ready.
Lions? Where you can see Ford Field.
You can see
from
Ford
the
Field
parking
when you
lot,
walk out.
where the Butcher's Cut is being distilled right now.
It would be a perfect spot for us, so hopefully that comes true.
Hopefully Dr. Jeffrey Mulholland can make it all happen.
Yeah. Oops.
Oh, nice.
All that.
When you've been drinking as hard as we have for as long as we have, there's going to be some mistakes.
You notice I've been looking at that bottle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Amen. All right, so please go out, check us out, We're on all the platforms.
Like us, follow us.
YouTube, if you want to watch us, Spotify, get out there and find us. GOATQuest is coming at you, but what we want more than anything else is for you to go out into the world and be the GOAT at whatever it is that you're doing today.
Deal.